First, as I look back, I think about my own life and so many other young people who may make choices or unwise choices and decisions. And I'm reminded of my mentor. He's since passed, but I have a picture of him because in many ways he saved my life because of the trajectory that I was on. At the age of 14, I was expelled from all schools in Atlanta, Georgia. And as a result of that, I was in and out of the streets for 2 years, from armed robbery to burglary, to stealing cars, to selling drugs, to all type of hustling. You think about a 14-year-old with no skills. So it wasn't my cognitive ability or my ability to be able to read and write and math and all those other things. And what we see is so many other young people making some of those unwise choices. In my case, my mentor came in my life at the age of 16, although I couldn't go to some of the traditional schools. It wasn't my ability, cognitive ability. And as a result of him being in my life, I like to say he saved my life. And actually what he did is he made me see some of the good in me that I didn't see in myself. Not that my mother wasn't doing all the things that she could do and other people around me. If I look back at it, I had about 70 other seventh grade boys who went in seventh grade with me, and only 2 of us graduated from high school. And I'm the only one that I can recall that I know of that actually graduated from college, was able to go on to have some success. Not that they all were not successful in some ways, but when you look at 2 out of 70 boys that I went to elementary school with, and I'm the only one that graduated from college, I look back at what the role my mentor had in my life, and I don't know if he had any deliberate, intentional way of reaching me, but the reality is he was able to reach me in a way that not some others were not able to. And so I owe so much to him, but he didn't do it from an instructional. He was able to get to me, reach me, build that relationship. And he did it through some way of doing it, which I don't know exactly what he did, but he was able to do it. But it wasn't about math, English, science, social studies. It was about that relationship. And I think so many kids now, so many young people are making choices and decisions that are unwise. And I think so much of that has to do with that caring adult. And we know parents care. I mean, anyone that doesn't think parents don't love their children, I think I don't understand, or maybe judging in the wrong way. May not have the skill set to reach and teach, in other words, to be able to participate in some of the things that their kids know that they need to be able to do. But the bottom line is, how do we reach young people so we can get them to get turned on to what I call living, so they can get turned on to learning? And we can keep raising the bar. But my mentor was able to do that. And at this point, his name is Bobby Garrett. Again, he's passed on, but to this day, I know I owe so much to him because he was able to deal with some of what we call those social-emotional learning. I was ill-equipped to deal with, even though I had the ability to read and write and compute and all those other things. I think about what triggered me. I don't know if I was the kind of kid that was just a trouble kid my whole life. I know I wasn't. I mean, I didn't grow up in a way of just being a kid who was just out destroying his community and everything around him. I wasn't that type of kid. But I think more than anything, what triggered it was, I think some of the good I had in me, he was able to bring that out. And all those other things that I was doing was not really my personality. And I think that's the way we have to look at all kids. He was able to identify talent identification versus problem identification. I think so many times we put kids in categories when we see them doing things. In his case, he saw so much good in me that I didn't see in myself, and he was able to bring that out in an environment. He became my mentor. I didn't ask him to be my mentor because kids don't know they need a mentor. They don't know they need a caring adult. Even as I got older and I started maturing physically, but emotionally and mentally, I was not necessarily prepared to adjust or to deal with all life circumstances and situations. And so when I think about what triggered it, I think I was put in an environment that he was there. Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened to me because of the trajectory I was on before him. And so when I think about what triggered I don't know if it was an incident or a process, because I definitely don't think it was an incident, because that's kind of a one-time thing, whereas he stuck with me. He stuck with me, and he was able to continue to take all of the, I tend to think that I came to school, in this case, it was an alternative school, but I think it's regardless whether it's an alternative school, whether it's a private school, whether it's a charter school, whether it's a public school, kids are coming to school, young people are coming to school with some type of baggage. Some have a small rucksack full of barriers, and others have a duffel bag full of barriers. I think it just depends on that child and that adult who's able to go in and see how can they take and keep removing small amounts. And he was able to do that. And so I don't know if it was a trigger or a process, because he stayed with me during that education process for over 2 years. And in fact, he stayed with me as my mentor, even as I became an adult, all the way through college and graduate school and so on. And so I just think this was a process of him dealing with one thing at a time, pulling that out, getting rid of, as I like to say, some of the baggage that I was bringing to schools, even though schools didn't create the baggage. The reality is kids are coming to school with baggage. And baggage doesn't always mean that it's a negative and you're doing something so severe. I mean, there are plenty of young ladies who found themselves teen mothers that were all A students, but yet there was something that led them to make an unwise choice. There are plenty of young men who have the ability to academically, but want that short-term gratification as opposed to waiting. And so he was able to just get me to see, I don't think formally, to address some of the social emotional things I was facing at the time, because granted, that's been a while ago, but I think his process, his care, his relationship through addressing some of the things that I was dealing with. And I think we find a lot of kids in those situations, kids who have the ability to even take advanced placement courses, but aren't living up to their full potential. They may have the skill academically, but may not have the will for all the non-academic issues that they're facing. And I think that that's what we're seeing now in so many young people's lives, that it's not the academics in so many cases that's causing us not to be successful. It's some of the non-academic kinds of issues that we're faced with, and that maturation just haven't hit us for whatever reason. Unlike some kids, they're going to learn and do well just because. And I think my mentor, in this case, he was the principal of the school, just so happened. He was the director or principal of the school I attended. And he just gravitated to me and made me a better person because of what he was able to do.